Hello and welcome to NTD News Today. Kevin Hogan here. Let's take a look at our top stories. Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer is reportedly planning to retire. This will give President Biden the opportunity to appoint his first Supreme Court justice. We hear from an analyst who speculates on the timing behind Breyer's decision. Billions of dollars in U.S. pandemic funding went to foreign recipients. We have details on the government report and where exactly the money went. COVID cases and hospitalizations are falling in many areas of the U.S., but the director of a testing center says Americans still need to be vigilant as the virus continues to mutate. He offers advice on when to seek medical treatment and who should get boosters. And fans visit a sculpture of NBA great Kobe Bryant and his daughter. It's at the site where their helicopter crashed 2 years ago. Billions of dollars in U.S. pandemic aid has apparently been sent overseas. That's according to a recent government report. NTD's Jessica Beatty has the details.
Billions of U.S. taxpayer dollars from pandemic relief packages were actually distributed overseas. A report by the government's Pandemic Response Accountability Committee, or PRAC, says $6.4 billion in U.S. pandemic aid went to 2,000 foreign contractors and nonprofits in 177 countries. The money came from two pandemic relief packages Congress passed in March 2020 and March 2021. Recipients in Switzerland received the most, totaling more than $2 billion. PRAC says that's because a large number of international groups are based there. After Switzerland, Kuwait and Syria received the most. The largest single international recipient by far is the United Nations, which received over $830 million. Of all the overseas funding, 3 groups received 43% of it. They are the UN, the Global Fund to Fight AIDS, Tuberculosis, and Malaria, and the UN's High Commissioner for Refugees. PRAC was created in the spring of 2020 to track money allocated in the CARES Act. It's now tracking more than $5 trillion in federal pandemic aid. Not an easy feat, and different groups are coming up with different numbers. While PRAC found that $6.4 billion went abroad, the Treasury estimates that $14.6 billion went to foreign aid funding. And the founder of OpenTheBooks.com, Adam Andrzejewski, told the Epoch Times it's actually probably more than that, because the estimates didn't include all foreign-related COVID-19 spending, like the Department of Health and Human Services Global Vaccine Program, money earmarked for U.S. aid, or American subsidiaries of foreign companies. Jessica Beatty, NTD News.
Some updates on the pandemic in the United States. The Navy this week dismissed more active duty sailors who failed to comply with vaccine mandates. The CDC said Omicron infection numbers are still falling, though the number of virus-related deaths has not.
More service members in the U.S. have been discharged for refusing COVID-19 vaccines, including 23 active duty sailors. In a statement Wednesday, the Navy counted a total of 45 so-called separations. Last August, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin released a memo mandating that all military personnel get vaccinated. Over 3,200 sailors have requested religious exemptions, but none of them have been approved. President Biden's vaccine mandate also continues to face criticism among lawmakers. Commenting on the Navy's decision, Senator Jim Inhofe wrote in a tweet, "These early indications show millions of taxpayer dollars will be spent discharging unvaccinated troops and recruiting replacements because the Biden admin didn't have a plan." In the Midwest, members of the Ohio National Guard will soon enter hospitals and testing sites throughout the southwest corner of the state, including in Cincinnati and Springfield. Governor Mike DeWine announced the decision earlier this week. He said in a statement that the Guard continues its mission to support the state's hardest-hit hospitals as COVID-19 case rates have surged, driving hospitalizations and ICU admissions this month to their highest levels throughout the pandemic. More than 2,000 Guard members will participate in the effort. Health officials said this week that COVID-19 cases and hospitalizations in the U.S. continue to decline. According to CDC Director Dr. Rochelle Walensky, the 7-day daily average of cases is down about 6% from last week. Daily hospital admissions also dropped by about 8%, though the number of deaths rose about 21% from last week, reaching over 2,200 per day. According to the CDC, the wave triggered by Omicron appears to have peaked in mid-January, with cases steadily declining since then.
A new poll indicates that over 1/3 of the world's qualified pilots are currently out of work. It's likely a result of reduced travel amid the pandemic. A new survey from Goose Recruitment and Flight Global shows just over 60% of pilots are currently employed, and those figures actually mark an improvement from last year. At that time, only over 40% of pilots were reportedly employed. The survey also shows major regional variation. The amount of pilots not working seems to correlate with the degree of travel restrictions imposed by local governments. In the U.S., more than 80% of pilots are employed. In the Asia-Pacific region, excluding China, that number is just 53%, likely a result of stricter border rules and mandatory quarantines. The airline industry is among those hardest hit by the pandemic. Air traffic was down as much as 60% in January 2021. COVID cases are falling in areas across the U.S., from North Dakota to Los Angeles, from Florida to Pennsylvania, and hospitalizations are also falling, with states in the Northeast seeing the sharpest decline. I wanted to learn more about treatment options, boosters, and when people should visit the hospital after contracting COVID, so I spoke with Dr. Patrick McEnany. He's a director of a testing center in Illinois. He tells us when medical treatment is needed.
That's always the big question. People, will get a test somewhere, they'll find out they have COVID, and, they're not sure if they should seek further treatment. Often a lot of these symptoms will be similar to common cold symptoms. When people should go to the hospital is, when they start spiking, higher temperatures, over 101. The other times are if you're just feeling so terrible that you really can't, get fluids down. People are getting dehydrated from issues like that. If you're just not feeling well enough.
And what types of people should get the booster?
Pretty much everybody should get a booster. I think one of the key things, the questions I get a lot is, when do you get the booster if you've had COVID recently? And so, the CDC recommends that you're asymptomatic and you kind of get through your cycle of COVID until you should get the vaccine. Otherwise, people can have natural antibodies that last 3 to 6 months. There are different types of antibody testing to see if you still have antibodies. So either get it after your COVID clears, or you can do the antibody testing, and when that antibodies start going down, that's also a good time to get it.
And what are the predominant treatments right now for COVID?
On an outpatient basis, and this is where we get most of the questions, traditionally it's supportive care like you would do for normal flu symptoms. If symptoms start getting a little worse and people have trouble breathing, adding steroids can be helpful. Zithromycin, a Z-Pak that you may take for other types of issues, also has been effective. The one thing that hasn't been effective is Tamiflu. Tamiflu is typically used for influenza, the regular flu, but it hasn't been effective with COVID.
What about this phenomenon, Flurona? Do any of those treatments help?
That's been newer coming out. At this stage in the game, we're not sure. The Tamiflu could potentially be helpful for that, but we don't have enough research and experience to say one way or the other.
And what advice do you have for Americans?
I think, COVID fatigue is a real thing, and a lot of people are kind of getting fed up with it. And I think that we need to, kind of buckle down and just, be aware that this still can be spread. It's still kind of mutating and evolving. And, hopefully, as a country, we get our immunity to where it needs to be, where this becomes less of an issue.
Dr. McEnany reminds those who got the COVID vaccine that they are not immune to the virus just because the 2 doses were taken. He says if symptoms appear, it's a good idea to be tested, especially if the vaccine was taken a while ago. The Florida nominee for Surgeon General moves closer to full confirmation, but Democrats walked out during a hearing. They said he wasn't giving clear answers during questioning. The Democrat walkout didn't seem to affect nominee Dr. Joseph Ladapo's progress towards full confirmation. Democrats tried to pin Ladapo with yes or no questions about his policies. He replied that yes or no questions are not that easy to find in science. Republicans control the state Senate Committee on Health Policy and move the confirmation forward without Democrat votes. More approvals are needed before he officially takes the position. Ladapo was appointed in September by Florida Governor Ron Desantis. He's drawn national attention over his alignment with the governor, especially over pandemic policies that often run counter to the Biden administration. President Biden may soon get to pick his first Supreme Court justice. This comes after lawmakers said on Wednesday that Justice Stephen Breyer plans to retire. An analyst points to the timing of Breyer's decision, suggesting it was done to ensure his successor will share a similar point of view. The liberal Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer is 83 years old. He has served on the nation's high court since 1994, but plans to retire give President Biden the opportunity to fulfill a campaign promise. He pledged to appoint the first black woman to the nation's top court. Former President Donald Trump, who preceded Biden, appointed 3 justices during his term in office. The Constitution dictates that the U.S. Senate is responsible for confirming the pick. Democrats hold a razor-thin majority there. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said the Senate will have a prompt hearing for Biden's nominee and that they will be considered and confirmed quickly. Democrats need to act fast if they're to confirm the nominee. That's because Republicans are trying to regain control of the upper chamber in the midterms. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell says he plans to block any of Biden's nominations. That's if Republicans do take over the majority. A law professor calls Breyer's decision to retire timely. He says that's because the timing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg's departure from the bench preceded Amy Coney Barrett taking her seat.
And I think he saw that the Democrats may not have the Senate for much longer, and he wanted to make sure his legacy was in good hands. And every article about Ruth Bader Ginsburg does usually mention that she was replaced by someone who's very conservative. So I guess what I'm saying is he knew it was time, and he saw the writing on the wall, and he had the negative example of Ginsburg.
Biden's nominee is not expected to change the ideological makeup of the court. Breyer had faced pressure by some progressive and Black Lives Matter activists to retire. That's according to Fox News. BLM, Women's March, and other groups made a joint effort to call for him to retire. An ad last year, paid for by the group, said, Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer should immediately announce his intent to retire from the bench. Breyer told Slate in March 2021, eventually I'll retire, sure I will, and it's hard to know exactly when. Regardless of the pressure, Breyer had stayed silent on his plans to retire for the most part. President Biden signed an executive order making sexual harassment a crime for military members. The order also strengthens the military's response to cases of domestic violence and criminalizes revenge pornography. The White House said the changes come in part from recommendations from the Independent Review Commission on Sexual Assault in the Military. The Defense Secretary launched the commission in March last year. Making sexual harassment a crime in the military was part of the I Am Vanessa Guillen Act. It's named after a member of the military who was murdered at age 20 2 years ago. Based on what her family members told Army leaders, her superiors had sexually harassed her. Army reports say her complaints were ignored. The suspect in her murder case was also an Army member, but committed suicide when officers approached him. The order now makes it possible for military members to report incidents of sexual harassment to a third party instead of up their chain of command. The American Lung Association is attacking the federal government over its tobacco use. In its 20th annual State of Tobacco Control Report, the organization issued the government a grade of D in the regulation of tobacco products category and an F for federal tobacco taxes. It's asking the Food and Drug Administration to finalize proposals that would end the sale of flavored cigars and menthol cigarettes. The group says 2 million middle school and high school students used e-cigarettes last year. It wants the FDA to classify the synthetic nicotine used to make vaping products as a drug so it can be regulated. That form of nicotine is not covered under the Tobacco Control Act. A 23-year-old New York man is facing hundreds of gun-related charges for allegedly selling dozens of weapons to an undercover cop. According to 2 indictments filed in the Bronx Supreme Court, Shakur Rodriguez is charged with a total of 304 counts, including the criminal sale and possession of a firearm and criminal possession of a weapon. He was arraigned on both indictments. According to the Bronx District Attorney, the college student was allegedly smuggling illegal weapons to the Bronx and Manhattan. He has pleaded not guilty to 225 counts. He will appear in front of a judge again next Monday. A pro-police rally was held in New York City in support of the 2 NYPD officers who were recently killed in the line of duty. Organizational leaders and several candidates for the office spoke at the event, calling on Manhattan's district attorney to make some changes. NTD's Jason Perry has the story.
The NYPD continues to mourn the loss of officers Wilbert Mora and Jason Rivera. The two were responding to a domestic disturbance call when a gunman opened fire on them in a narrow hallway. Both succumbed to their injuries. The Bronx County Conservative Party held a rally in support of the fallen police officers in front of the Manhattan District Attorney's office. New York gubernatorial candidate Andrew Giuliani called on Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg to start prosecuting suspects for resisting arrest.
You're going to put our cops on the line like that when every single day they come, they kiss their kids goodbye, and they don't know if they're going to come back? And it is our duty to make sure that we stand with them. It is our duty to make sure that we take a look at bail reform, and we don't tweak a bail reform. I don't want to hear about tweaking bail reform. We throw that document in the garbage, because that, ladies and gentlemen, is one of the worst laws in New York State history.
Madeline Brame has personally felt the effects of bail reform. After her son was murdered in 2018, one of the alleged killers had her bail reduced from $750,000 to $12,000.
She currently walks the streets of Harlem this day, in your community, in my community, free to come and go as she pleases, works at home with her family, spends Christmas with her children.
When I spoke to one of the detectives, I asked, what kind of guys were Officers Mora and Officer Rivera. And he said they were two of the best kids I've ever seen come on the job.
We reached out to the Manhattan DA's office, but did not hear back before airtime.
We need to make sure that we end up prosecuting our criminals, especially when they commit violent crimes. Otherwise, unfortunately, we're going to have more and more funerals at St. Pat's, and I don't want to continue to see our officers being laid to rest like this.
Officer Wilbert Mora was 27 years old, and Officer Jason Rivera was 22 years old. Jason Perry, NTD News, New York.
North Carolina will be home to a plant that will manufacture next-generation supersonic passenger jets. An aviation company announced that they've chosen Piedmont Triad International Airport in Greensboro, North Carolina. Boom Supersonic, which is based in Colorado, will build its first full-scale manufacturing facility at the airport. It will include the final assembly line, testing, and delivery center for its proposed supersonic airliner called Overture. The investment could create more than 2,000 jobs in the region in the next decade. The company says the new factory will begin production in 2024. The first Overture aircraft will roll out in 2025, fly in 2026, and carry its first passengers by 2029. The plane is designed to carry up to 88 passengers and travel at 1,300 miles per hour. That would make it twice as fast as today's passenger jets. State and local governments have offered $230 million in incentives. Tesla sped past Wall Street estimates for quarterly revenue, but warned supply chain issues could continue through this year. Despite the challenges, Tesla delivered a record number of vehicles to customers in the last quarter. Revenue rose to over $17 billion in the fourth quarter, up from $10.7 billion a year earlier.
The electric car maker has not been as affected by a hampered supply chain as other auto competitors have. But in a statement, Tesla said, quote, "Our own factories have been running below capacity for several quarters as supply chain became the main limiting factor, which is likely to continue through 2022. Shares of Tesla fell in extended trading. The company also said on Wednesday that its new factory in Austin has started production of Model Y late last year, with plans to start deliveries to customers after final certification. It said it aims to maximize output from its California factory beyond 600,000 vehicles per year. That goal comes as Tesla, the world's most valuable automaker, faces rising competition from rivals who are set to launch an array of electric cars, from more affordable models to electric pickups.
Secure, the true solution for your digital privacy and security. Secure is a private and secure messaging and email solution hosted in Switzerland, using military-grade encryption and Swiss privacy laws, giving you true privacy. Secure is 100% private and does not collect or sell any of your personal data. Secure's Helix technology connects you securely to our Swiss servers without the need of a VPN. guaranteeing privacy and security for all your communications. Secure Messenger doesn't require your phone number or any personal data that hackers target. Chat by Invites allows you to chat privately and securely with anyone outside of your secure network without the need for others to download Secure. Secure Send offers you a private and secure way to email anyone outside of Secure. You won't find this level of privacy or security on any other email or instant messaging application. Visit secure.com. Regain and protect your privacy today.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, CEO of MyPillow. Cancel culture has not only affected myself and MyPillow, but also millions of you out there. My employees and I want to personally thank each and every one of you for all your support. At MyPillow, we have hundreds of products now, including my new slippers, bathrobes, sleepwear, and my new beds. We are offering the best products ever for the best prices ever. For example, we have the standard size MyPillows, regularly $69.98, now only $19.98 with your promo code. Or you can get custom fit with my premium queen size MyPillows, regularly $79.98, now just $29.98. Or my king size, regularly $89.98, now just $34.98. So go to mypillow.com now and use the promo code on your screen or call the 1-800 number below to receive these exclusive offers. Thank you and God bless.
A sculpture of NBA great Kobe Bryant and his daughter Gianna, Gigi Bryant, was brought to the site of their helicopter crash. It's where they were tragically killed alongside 7 others near Los Angeles 2 years ago. NTD's Andrew Thomas reports.
The 160-pound bronze statue depicts the pair wearing basketball uniforms, with Gigi holding Kobe's hand, which rests on her shoulder. Sculptor Dan Medina was on hand to greet fans who made the 1.3-mile hike to pay their respects to the NBA legend.
The reason why I came today was because when I would visit the area prior to this, I never got the sense that something was done in the right way to honor the lives that were lost. And this is my attempt to kind of do things the right way.
Engraved on the statue's steel pedestal are the names of all 9 victims of the early morning crash in foggy weather on January 26, 2020. It also includes an inscription of Bryant's famous quote, "Heroes come and go, but legends are forever." Nicole Zuch-Donetz of Woodland Hills was one of the dozens of fans who made the trip to pay their respects.
And I remember when this happened, we were at home and we lived close and we could hear the helicopter and it immediately popped up on my phone and we didn't believe it. And so I wanted to come though out of respect and I thought, this statue's beautiful.
Tributes to Bryant by his friends, fans, and former teammates poured out on social media on Wednesday. But for fan Alex Moss, it was important to visit the site.
You know, when you're a local, you know, it's different. It's different when you could come and see where something that actually happened. So, you know, I just came to just feel the energy here.
A 5-time NBA champion in his 20 seasons with the Los Angeles Lakers, Bryant's death at age 41 shocked the world of professional sports and sent his fans into mourning. Gigi was 13 at the time of the crash. The accident occurred as they were headed to a youth basketball tournament. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
The California Academy of Sciences is home to what is likely to be the world's oldest aquarium fish. Researchers think she's around 90 years old. NTD's Chenny Wu brings us the story.
Methuselah is the oldest person mentioned in the Bible, said to have lived to be 969 years old. Though not quite as old, a creature named after the biblical character in a San Francisco museum is believed to be the oldest living aquarium fish in the world. Methuselah is a 4-foot-long Australian lungfish, weighing around 40 pounds.
They're really, really ancient fish, so they literally have lungs as well as gills. So it's thought that they were the in-between between fish and amphibians.
Methuselah was already believed to be around 5 or 6 years old when it was brought to the California Academy of Sciences from Australia in 1938. So biologists now estimate Methuselah to be 90.
We had a nice little experiment where we moved her to a larger tank because people were concerned that there wasn't enough room in this habitat for her. but she ended up not liking the larger tank, and then we decided to move her back here, where she now no longer has roommates, which she appreciates as well. So you might consider her a grumpy old woman, perhaps.
The Australian lungfish is now a threatened species and can no longer be exported from Australian waters. So biologists at the Academy say it's unlikely they'll get a replacement once Methuselah passes away. In the meantime, they say they'll continue giving her the best care and her favorite treats, fresh figs and belly rubs. Chenny Wu, NTD News.
Today marks International Holocaust Remembrance Day. The United Nations designated it January 27th to honor an anniversary. That's when Allied troops liberated Auschwitz concentration camp in German-occupied Poland. It was one of many such camps set up by Nazi Germany for the purpose of carrying out genocide and forced labor. Jewish people were the primary targets of Adolf Hitler's genocide plans. 6 million died during the Holocaust between 1933 and 1945. His regime also killed 5 million others during the same period, including political enemies, ethnic minorities, and homosexuals. Historians and educators say remembering the period is vital to preventing future genocides. Big parts of the Biden agenda are stalled in Congress. Democrat leadership has now turned its attention to a new goal that's likely to gain bipartisan support, enhancing competition in the global economy, especially competition with China. NTD's Melina Weisskopf has more.
The White House has seen one setback after another, and Biden is ready for a big win with the new American Competition Act. The House just this week unveiled their version of a bill that was already passed in the Senate to invest in American innovation, technology, and manufacturing. It's also meant to reduce our dependence on China.
It's been on the launch pad for more than a year. We need to get moving if we're serious about competing with China.
The nearly 3,000-page bill invests in strengthening supply chain in American manufacturing, scientific research and technology, securing global competitiveness, and includes the Chips for America Act, a key piece to address the shortage of semiconductors used in everything from smartphones to cars.
We're going to stamp everything we can made in America, especially these computer chips.
The House's bill also includes $3 billion for solar manufacturing, a key investment to reduce dependence on China's green energy market as the Biden administration plans to move toward renewable energy. The Senate passed their version of the bill over the summer with bipartisan support, but some Republicans were disappointed that the final version didn't include action to further prevent intellectual property theft by Chinese Communist Party spies.
What if a year from now we find out, and you're going to read an article 2 years from now, whatever, that says the Chinese have stolen 25-30% of the IP developed by the money that's been put forward in the bill that was passed? Then we're all going to feel pretty stupid around here.
Rubio this week sent a fiery statement that the DOJ has not done enough. Rubio pointed to a recent case with Professor Gong Chen at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Chen failed to disclose his ties to the Chinese Communist Party and was taken to court, but the DOJ dropped Chen's case last week.
And so from what I've seen in this bill, it doesn't take action to stop those CCP officials from continuing to steal that intellectual property theft. Do you think that's a problem if it goes unaddressed?
Chinese espionage is a massive problem. I'm not sure this bill is the place to address it. There are efforts in the FBI and Department of Justice to go after the Chinese. Those probably need to be expanded. But Chinese espionage, IP theft is different from supporting our own science and technology base.
It's expected that some version of this bill will be passed through Congress and signed into law by President Biden. But the question now is, will Senate Republicans put up a fight if they don't get to add some amendments, such as action to protect against intellectual property theft? Reporting in Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
On the defense front, the U.S. Defense Secretary is set to meet with CEOs of the hypersonics industry. The U.S. is trying to keep up with new hypersonic missile technology after reports that Beijing had successful launches. Russia and North Korea have also claimed successful launches using the new technology. Senator Angus King last year called the tech a game changer and noted the U.S. cannot lag behind. Hypersonic missiles are believed capable of surprising an opponent with a devastating first strike. The Financial Times reported that a Beijing missile traveled at least 5 times the speed of sound. It's a first for missile technology in any country. The hypersonic glide vehicle can also reportedly carry a nuclear warhead. The development stunned Pentagon scientists. Up next, Ukrainian soldiers are reminded to stay calm about the crisis on their borders. This comes after Russia agreed to the principle of a ceasefire after the so-called Normandy talks. Find out more here on NTD News.
We are being censored. America's news outlets no longer provide the truth. 90% of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. They're not out to tell you the truth of what's happening. They're out to tell you the picture of the world that they represent. The Epoch Times is independent. We're not controlled by any special interest, and we never will be. This is a battle between truth and deceit, a battle between forces that would ensnare this country in ignorance, and between a media that wants to present you with the truth. Subscribe today to our digital edition at theepochtimes.com and join the Americans who are seeking truth and tradition. Read The Difference on all your devices. We'd love to have you on board.
The 2022 NTD 8th International Chinese Vocal Competition will be held at the Merkin Hall of Kaufman Music Center in New York City. The competition is honored to have specially invited vocalists with the world-renowned Shen Yun Performing Arts to serve on its panel of judges. The gold award is $10,000. The 2022 8th International Chinese Vocal Competition. For more information, please visit vocal.ntdtv.com.
Navigating a world of economic madness, you need to have the right guide. What do today's decisions mean for your tomorrow? We ask why. What's the alternative? Uncover the deeper reasons and the hidden influences, and highlight the real opportunities for profit. At NTD Business, we connect the dots for you. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. NTD Business. I'm Paul Green.
State Department spokesman Ned Price says the Nord Stream 2 pipeline is leverage in the Russia-Ukraine crisis. Price made the comments on NPR on Wednesday. He said if Russia invades Ukraine, Nord Stream 2 will not move forward. Construction of the pipeline began in 2018. Once fully constructed, it will double Russia's capacity to deliver Arctic gas to European countries. By 2019, construction in the waters of Russia, Finland, and Sweden was completed. Most of the work in German and Danish waters was also done. In Ukraine, Nord Stream 2 faces opposition. Ukrainian officials fear that Russia will use it as a weapon to suppress them. German ambassador to the U.S., Emily Haber, commented on this. She tweeted that if Russia uses energy as a weapon, or if there is another violation of Ukraine's sovereignty, Russia will pay a high price. Russia agreed to uphold a ceasefire at Wednesday's Normandy format talks. While Moscow is still pondering its next move, some Ukrainian soldiers believe a Russian invasion won't be imminent.
Members of the Ukrainian army are keeping an eye on the outcome of this week's U.S.-Russia talks. An army officer says he's concerned about the situation, but speculates the situation won't escalate too much.
I'm sure that nothing will happen, and even if they try, people in those cities where it happens will take the situation into their own hands and stop any provocation.
Other service members say staying calm is key right now.
Chances of an invasion are meager. I believe this is likely just an information war underway to scare people and create panic. It does not make sense to worry about it.
You should not panic. If you do while a wounded person you're taking care of is crying and swearing, it would be a fiasco if you panic too. So we need to stay calm.
Russia held Normandy format talks with Ukraine, France, and Germany in Paris on Wednesday. According to the country's chief negotiator, the 4 countries have agreed to observe a ceasefire in eastern Ukraine. But questions about the peaceful settlement in the region remain unsolved. Another 4-nation summit will follow in Berlin in 2 weeks.
This summit should take place after all legal questions regarding the Ukraine peace settlement have been agreed upon. It's the key position.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said Putin is still deciding Russia's next move, and that depends on written responses the U.S. and NATO submitted Wednesday.
NATO, or the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, plays an important part in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. We look at why NATO members are sending arms to Ukraine and why Russian President Vladimir Putin doesn't trust NATO. NTD's Joy Felix has more.
NATO was formed in 1949 by 12 countries, with the UK, US, Canada and France as its founding members. Its aim was originally to counter the threat of post-war Russian expansion in Europe. Soviet Russia formed its own military alliance of Eastern European communist countries called the Warsaw Pact. Following the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, many members of the Warsaw Pact joined NATO, including Poland, Czech Republic and Lithuania. Now NATO has 30 members. Ukraine declared independence from the Soviet Union in 1991. It is not a NATO member, but it is a partner country. This means there's an understanding it may be allowed to join the alliance sometime in the future. In recent years, Ukraine has moved towards closer ties with the European Union. A popular uprising in February 2014 forced out Moscow's leaning president Viktor Yanukovych. Then Russia annexed the strategically important Crimean Peninsula in early March. President Putin wants Ukraine to remain inside Russia's sphere of influence, and one of his key demands is for a guarantee that Ukraine will never be admitted to NATO. But NATO will not promise so, saying that such matters are decisions for Kiev and NATO members. Russian President Vladimir Putin says that US broke a guarantee it made in 1990 that NATO would not expand eastwards. He also says that Western countries are using NATO to surround Russia. NATO rejects these claims and says only a small number of its member states share borders with Russia. Joy Felix, NTD News.
Denmark will soon lift all COVID-19 restrictions within the country. The Prime Minister made the announcement, adding that the CCP virus should no longer be categorized as a socially critical sickness. The country will be completely open from February 1st. The Danish Prime Minister said she expected spring, summer, and early autumn to be an open Denmark with hugs, parties, and festivals. The government says it expects another season of increased infections during the colder months, which may require additional vaccinations, and it's not ruling out the possibility that a fourth shot could be necessary for everyone. Denmark's health minister recommended that some testing upon entry to the country is the only pandemic restriction that should remain, and that the testing will primarily apply to those who have not been vaccinated or previously infected. Just ahead, animals like hippos can recognize each other's voices from the same herd. Scientists found out more about how hippos communicate by recording and playing the noises they make. All that and more after this short break. Have you wondered how animals like hippos communicate with each other? New scientific research has found that hippos can recognize each other's voices. They make different noises to different hippos. Let's take a look.
These hippos in Maputo Special Reserve in Mozambique were the subjects of a special voice recognition study. Scientists who study the sounds and signals of animals recently published their report in the journal Current Biology.
Hippos emit very powerful signals and very low-frequency signals, low-pitch signals. So you have to bring a big loudspeaker. And with this loudspeaker, we were able to emit recorded sounds.
Hippos are aggressive, and although they stay in groups, they don't appear to socialize much. Scientists studied how the hippos communicate with each other by playing recorded hippo noises back to different groups of hippos.
We emitted the calls from an unfamiliar individual. Then a few seconds later, we always got some calls in response. And then at least one or two individuals came towards the loudspeaker, so they approached the loudspeaker, and they also displayed a marking behavior.
Hippos didn't show this type of aggressive behavior when the scientists played voices from the same herd. That means that hippos recognize voices from within their own herd. Scientists studying the hippos say it's important to understand their behavior. That's because hippos can be dangerous, especially for fishermen that go out on the lakes.
Visitors to a museum in Florence have been getting up close and personal with the restoration of a famous statue by Michelangelo. The Renaissance master had hoped to make it an altar for his tomb. Experts recently finished restoring it for the first time in around 470 years. NTD's Neil Woodrow brings us more details.
Restorers in Florence worked for nearly 2 years to bring a Michelangelo statue known as Bandini Pietà back to life. Michelangelo was in his 70s when he started working on this sculpture, but he left it unfinished. The word Pietà is a name given to subjects that show the Virgin Mary with the Christ taken down from the cross. The director of the restoration project comments on the personal nature of the work.
It's a Pietà that has suffered and is very intimate. There is definitely a strong feeling of Michelangelo because it was made for his tomb. So yes, it is a very personal statue, and in fact, among other things, there's a self-portrait of Michelangelo in the figure of Nicodemus.
Michelangelo worked on it in Rome between the years 1547 to 1555. The restorers said that the Pietà was carved from a marble block that had numerous minute cracks, especially on the base. This could have been why Michelangelo abandoned it. The marble also contained traces of pyrite, a sulfide mineral which would have caused sparks of marble to chip off when he hit with a chisel. After Michelangelo's death, his friend, Florentine sculptor Tiberio Calcani, restored the sculpture.
The Pietà had all the signs of fractures and of parts that had previously fallen off and had been reassembled by Calcagni. However, it is quite unlikely that Michelangelo tried to destroy the statue because no trace or signs of this have been found.
The sculpture has been at the Florence Museum since 1981.
We started the restoration in 2019 with the removal of surface deposits, then cleaned it with hot water, cotton swabs with slightly warmed water, to remove the surface dirt that had materialized from previous maintenance on the statue.
The entire restoration process was open for the public to see.
It was really interesting. The visitors were very interested and asked many questions about what we were doing, what products we used. So the public were involved to allow them to view such an important work in a museum as important as ours, but also to learn about the methods and the restoration techniques.
Restorers discovered the marble used came from the Medici quarries in Seravezza, not nearby Carrara, where he had obtained marble for some of his most famous statues. Neil Woodrow, NTD News.
If meditating isn't your thing, try some deep belly breathing. It's a quick and easy way to calm your nerves. Let's get a few tips from Gina Marie, who brings us Strong Mind and Body.
Some people simply can't get into meditation and have no desire to learn. If you can't fully shut down your brain to meditate, or you get bored trying to practice mindfulness, you are not alone. But that doesn't mean you can't calm anxieties or combat your stress by slowing down. There's a reason why people are told to take a deep breath when they're feeling excited or anxious. Breathing can have a calming effect. Learning how to control it and performing breathing exercises may help calm their nerves and reduce anxiety. There are many mindfulness practices out there like Tai Chi or Falun Gong that have a long and rich history. Yoga is another one that is often used as a meditative tool. You might think it's just about body movements, but breathing plays a key role in yoga's benefits. Its breathing exercises may be an effective calming tool for people who have trouble with mindfulness or sitting still. Deep belly breathing is one breathing exercise you can try. It utilizes the diaphragm to expand the lungs so that air moves more deeply into you. Let's look at how to deep belly breathe. Either sit in a chair or lie on the floor. Slowly breathe in through your nose for 5 seconds. Feel your stomach rise as you breathe into your belly before slowly exhaling for a 5 count. Breath retention is another exercise that may help calm the nerves. It involves holding your breath without inhaling or exhaling immediately. It can be a little uncomfortable, but practice will help. Sit down, keeping your back straight. Breathe in through your nose for 5 seconds and hold it in your lungs for 10 seconds. Slowly exhale through your mouth once the 10 seconds are up. Take a few regular breaths, then do it again. Repeat a few times to see if it helps to calm you down. Mindfulness might be popular, but it may not be for everybody. Try these breathing techniques to help deal with stress and calm anxieties. If breathing is not your thing but you're still interested in meditation, try Tai Chi or Falun Gong. Materials are free to learn online.
Thanks for watching. At NTD, we're honored to be your source for the news. Catch us again tonight at 6:30 Eastern. In New York City, I'm Kevin Hogan.
Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Did you know YouTube only keeps selective videos on its platform? So if you want to make sure you get the full picture, just subscribe to our newsletter. Go to newsletter.ntd.com and sign up. It's free.